Radhe Radhe. Today is Saturday, 15th March 2025. And of course, first of all, a happy Holi to everyone as we continue with the festivities this weekend and from the past couple of days. Special time, and with that, we get into this recap video for today's Bhagavad Gita study session. Continuing our journey of chapter 10, we were able to cover a much longer than normal recap quiz. So, several more questions that covered last time's content on chapter 10, verses 27, 28, and 29. So, even more than usual, we do encourage you to please take a look at the description for the video to access that free community portal page where you can go through all those questions, try them, and then look at the answers one by one. So, plenty in that recap quiz before we covered chapter 10, verses 30 and 31. So, we'll first get started with chapter 10, verse 30. Prahladaschasmi daityanam kalah kalayatam aham mriganam cha mrigendroham venateyascha pakshinam. So chapter 10 verse 30 has the catchphrase holy time. As we discussed in class, what a wonderful grace to be able to describe and talk about chapter 10 verse 30. Unplanned, never knew when that would appear in this sequence of our sessions, but to be able to do that literally during this festive weekend of Holi. So that, as we discussed, divine knowledge, divine love, divine bliss, those are the components of grace. Many times we wonder or think, oh, I'm lacking something, or how do I see grace around me? Today, we saw in class truly how, of course, this is one live, spontaneous, special example of grace that we can talk about the verse where Sri Krishna has a reference to Holi or a character from Holi, literally during this Holi weekend. So Holi here, Holi, also of course could be Holy from a spiritual standpoint. Chapter 10, verse 30, Sri Krishna says that he is Prahlad. So that's the connection to Holi. He is Prahlad amongst the demons. He is also time that controls. Amongst the animals, he is the king, he is the lion. And amongst the birds, he is the majestic vehicle of Lord Vishnu, he is Garud. The commentary, of course, pretty short. Many of us do recognize the terms or the names that are mentioned. So, of course, we know the story of Prahlad, the son of the demon king Hiranyakashipu. Certainly this weekend and even at other times, you can go through videos that Swamiji has in his lectures and other content talking about the lengthier story of Prahlad and his devotion to Lord Vishnu. Briefly, Holika Dahan is celebrated before Holi. Prahlad was placed in the lap of Hiranyakashipu's sister Holika and put in the fire. Holika burnt, Prahlad did not, thanks to his devotion to Lord Vishnu. Symbolically, also, we do know that in Holika Dahan, that fire, we're trying to, of course, burn away all of our sins as well as these kleshas, these, afflictions, as they say, lust, greed, anger, envy, etc. So that's the symbolic meaning. Again, here, Sri Krishna says, when he's describing his devotees, might as well continue to talk about the opulence or the vibhuti as somebody who is very, very supreme. So one of them indeed is Prahlad. Sri Krishna says he is Prahlad, even the one sitting amongst all those demons, and because he was a demon king's son. Time, no surprise, whether you know that from a day-to-day context or in any other language or from science or physics. Time, of course, controls. Time, as they say, heals. Time changes things. Whatever it is, many things we say are subject to time, or just give it some time and something shall pass or change. And the point is that Sri Krishna establishes here that he is time. We've seen that, as we mentioned also in the Mahabharata episodes sequence that we described in class. Every episode, the narration, the voiceover, Samay, Main Samay Hu, I am time. It's the voice of the Lord speaking and presenting all those enlightening facts and episodes. So, of all that controls, Sri Krishna says that he is time. He gets then to the animals, the king of the jungle, the majestic lion. No surprise, we've heard that. We've seen that also in cartoons or animated form. Lion King, there's a reference there indeed, and scientifically, biologically, we do hear often or learn about the lion being the king of the jungle. So of those jungle creatures, one of them that Sri Krishna mentions he is supreme, it's a vibhuti, it's an opulence of his. He says he is the lion. And then he says amongst the birds, very, very majestic, divine one, he is Garud. Garud, as we talked about, is the Vahan, the divine vehicle of Lord Vishnu. Big eagle-like bird, and of course with massive wings. So you may have some image of that. And so these are some of the examples that Sri Krishna gives here in chapter 10, verse 30. Next, we look at chapter 10, verse 31. Pavanah pavatam asmi, Rama shastra bhritam aham, Jasharnam makaraschasmi, Srotasam asmi jahnavi. So chapter 10, verse 31 has the catchphrase here as a question, Ram's reflection, something for you to, of course, recognize beyond alliteration as a question for us to ponder about. We do get the answer, of course, in chapter 10, verse 31. Many of us know that, of course, from prior sessions or Swamiji's, Maharajji's lectures as well. And indeed, Sri Krishna here says, first of all, amongst those that purify, that entity, he is the wind. Then he says, amongst the wielders of weapons, he is Lord Ram. And then he says more in terms of creatures, that zoo concept continuing. So of water creatures, he is the crocodile. And of flowing rivers, what better than the holy river Ganga, known as the Ganges in English. So Swamiji describes that wind performs a lot of purification work. It takes away smells of the earth. It turns, impure water into water vapor. It makes fires burn by providing fuel in terms of oxygen. So it is the great purifier of nature. Indeed, that is what example Sri Krishna gives in this continuing list of his opulences and his vibhutis. Then, of course, amongst everyone who wielded weapons or wields weapons, he says he is Lord Ram. So if there was ever any doubt, which people certainly hopefully do not have, but here at least in chapter 10, verse 31, Sri Krishna establishes that he is Lord Ram. Lord Ram is Sri Krishna. We know them as the Supreme Lord, avatars, reincarnations of one another, of Lord Vishnu. So Sri Krishna is Ram, Ram is Sri Krishna. They manifest in terms of different ways and leelas and episodes. But of course, whether we can see or recognize or not, all their divine vibhutis, manifestations of their strengths and powers, everything is there. They're the Supreme Lord. Swamiji says that Sri Ram, Lord Ram, didn't, use weapons for any bad purpose. So that is why he's always considered as the perfect wielder of weapons. So as that avatar of God, Sri Krishna says he is Lord Ram. And then, of course, he does say that of water creatures, he is the crocodile. So that's another example of creatures. Interestingly, Sri Krishna goes on to talk about the Ganges. And in fact, the Ganges in one personification form is described actually to walk or float on the crocodile. So that's the connection there with this Makarash crocodile that Sri Krishna mentions. Of course, we know the Ganges, the Ganga, is an extremely holy river. It emanates from the Lord. As Swamiji says, it is so special that you can take the Ganges, the Ganga water, put it in a vessel or bottle, and we added this word to our English dictionaries. It does not putrefy for years. Putrefy means to rot or to go bad. So it does not happen. The effects are a little less pronounced, Swamiji says now, because of pollution, of course. And the point is that, of course, if we can do our part, anytime it's a sacrifice, a ritual, a festival, as long as we're also taking care of everything around us and nature, of course, that God has bestowed upon us, we can continue to benefit from all the powers that each entity or element brings. I want to take us to, of course, the flyer as we saw in class. If you remember, what does the mirror help you see? Reflect upon it. So pun with the word reflect, we're trying to look at a mirror reflection, but also reflect in terms of thinking. And what's being represented here is, of course, on this special occasion, Happy Holi with small font there. It is Sri Krishna looking at the mirror and seeing Lord Ram. Lord Ram, in turn, of course, can also see Sri Krishna if you did that the opposite way. Because indeed, today we see Sri Krishna says he is Lord Ram. They are the Supreme Lord, each the other. So that is the representation for this imagery over here. Of course, holy time, we talked about that. Special weekend indeed. And one more thing we showed in class, I'll show here again. A little hard to potentially zoom, but if you take a look at the very top of Lord Shiv, some of you may have asked or wondered at some point, there is a lady here that you often see. That's actually the goddess, and that is the goddess Ganga. It emanates from Jatao. Jatao are the matted locks of hair of Lord Shiv. The Ganga emanates from there, and we, of course, get to benefit of it on this earth. Thanks again, of course, to the Supreme Lord. We saw last time, or actually a couple of weeks ago, Sri Krishna also says amongst all the Rudras, he is Lord Shiv, he is Shankar. And so indeed, Krishna, Ram, Shiv, we get to benefit from their supreme presence in our lives, all the grace that we get over and over again. Let's not forget, we do need to pick up a couple of important Sanskrit words. So before I forget that, let us look today at Kalayatam, of all that controls. Again, we've seen this a lot, like am or nam, in so many of these words of chapter 10. So this is Kalayatam, of all that controls. Maybe this helps us then also remember Kalaha, which is time. So that's something as an example. The best of all that controls, that is time. Sri Krishna says he is time. And of course, we can look at a word from chapter 10, verse 31. Let's look at a description slash, in a way, maybe some kind of appellation as well, or it'll lead to an appellation for, of course, Lord Ram, Shastra Bhritam, of the carriers of weapons. So, of course, of all the carriers of weapons, he then gives the example of Lord Ram. So that is Shastra Bhritam. So those are the important Sanskrit words or phrases to add. We did, of course, briefly also learn a few other names today. So Venatayaha is for Garud, and then Janavi is for the Ganges, the daughter of Janu. So that is Janavi. So some words there, some names, and important Sanskrit terms to pick up. So again, chapter 10, verses 30 and 31, the content for today, after, as I said, a much longer quiz. So again, I'll encourage everyone to take a look and familiarize themselves with that. Now, one other comment I'm going to make. Let's take a look at chapter 10, and in fact, any of the presentations, and go to the very, very beginning, something that we have seen week after week, and perhaps now maybe an aha moment. With chapter 10, verse 31 now being done, we can actually talk about, or I want to talk about, all these images that make up the cover slide. You can see we have time, of all that controls. Sri Krishna says he is time. A few weeks ago, we had seen he is the moon amongst the stars in the sky. He also said he is the sun. Of course, we talked about Lord Shiv. He is Shankar. And then we saw recently that he is the Himalayas. Today also we see that he is the Ganges, the Ganga. So we've seen this over and over again. It's another example of grace all around us. Sometimes we see it, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we ask, what do these things represent or what do they mean? Now, of course, with many of these chapter 10 verses done, we get the full picture, definitely to store for posterity, hopefully. So we have all these examples here. In fact, you can even see there's Vasuki, the snake, right here, coiled around Lord Shiv's neck. So many of the examples of those vibhutis or opulences that Sri Krishna mentions in chapter 10, we've tried to make sure they're encompassed here in the cover slide. So with that, we continue to have the chapter 10 journey. We shall meet next week, which is Saturday, 22nd March, 2025, same 8 a.m. Central Time in the US, and the new time, 6:30 p.m. India, because of daylight saving time in North America. Till then, of course, continue to study and review the material, and of course, make the most again of this auspicious holy weekend. Happy Holi, thank you so much, and Radhe Radhe.